Hey folks, I'm Rupali, your host, and welcome back to Crime Hack. The case that started with Aakash's beat up has ended with Raj being rescued. Raj and Sandy have succeeded in solving their first official case ever and in the process brought the chili powder gang down. This gang was responsible for the temple thefts all across the state and there was no stopping them. However, the boys succeeded in thrashing their plans of looting the richest, the most revered Ganapati temple in Pune, the Dagadu Sheth Ganapati mandir. Now is the time to recover their loot. And now, Nayak Brothers and the Mystery of the Catacombish Tunnels by Rupali Rajapadhe Roti, Part 53. It was almost lunchtime when their father walked in. "Wanna come for a ride?" he asked with a twinkle in his eye. "Where to?" The boys immediately perked up. "Tushar has been telling us a lot of things about this gang, and we were going to uncover their latest loot," their father replied. "What? The palanquin?" Sandy immediately sprang up to his feet. Raj was also charged up now. "Where is it?" he asked with as much energy as he could muster. He was still feeling a bit weak. "How about a long drive in my car?" The boys were bursting with curiosity, but also loved surprises. "And did you catch the rest of the gang?" Sandy wanted to know. "Well, most of them, yes. But the gang leader and Romy, who's your canteen guy, are still at large." Mr. Nayak made a face. After a quick meal, the trio jumped in Mr. Nayak's car and headed toward Lonavala, which is a beautiful hill station and picnickers' favorite spot. Just an hour's drive from Pune, it is a pleasant small town that receives a huge downpour every year. It has two beautiful dams that are frequented by tourists, and it is surrounded by breathtaking mountains, forts, and man-made caves carved out of whole rock cliffs. It is also the place where the Indrayani river originates and takes form. Indrayani is also the river that flows through Alandi, from where the silver palanquin was stolen. Just a few kilometers before Lonavala, Mr. Nayak turned onto a dirt road that paralleled a small branch of the Indrayani river. The boys wondered where they were going, as Mr. Nayak still hadn't spilled the beans. With mounting excitement and eagerness, the boys saw the terrain fly past in a jiffy, and soon they stopped near a huge lake. The Indrayani river branch seemed to have ended up in this huge lake. A few speedboats with excited men aboard were looking for something underwater. "The palanquin is underwater?" Sandy asked, flabbergasted. Mr. Nayak smiled broadly. "Tushar told me that the gang had used a sedative spray on the people in and around the temple in Alandi, so as to steal the palanquin without being caught or seen. Then they carried the palanquin on their shoulders to the river and dumped it in. They had hired a speedboat from a boat company nearby and fastened the palanquin to the boat underwater. They then tugged it up the river and to this lake and dumped it here. They were going to keep it here till the case settled a bit and then come back later to reap the fruits of their labor." Raj and Sandy stood eagerly watching the proceedings of the ongoing search, while a few men dived into the stagnant, murky waters of the lake. It was a hot and sunny afternoon, and the heat was becoming unbearable. The only solace was watching the vast expanse of water. The boys hadn't gained their strength fully, and Raj soon felt his knees shaking. "I need to sit," he told his father, who suggested that the boys sit in the car till the palanquin was retrieved. The car was parked away from the lake toward the river's limb, and the boys strolled towards it. "You know, I would prefer sitting under a tree. It gets real stuffy in a car after a while," said Sandy. So the boys picked a nice shady tree and sat chatting, throwing stones into the water. "I wanted to ask you for some time now." Raj hesitated. I was wondering why you were having nightmares after the short spell with Teja." Sandy suddenly became silent. All those memories of that evening came rushing back to him, and he avoided eye contact. "He did more than beat you up," Raj speculated. Then looking Sandy in the eye, he asked, "Didn't he?" Sandy picked up a twig and started breaking it in multiple pieces, thinking to himself and still not responding. Raj's eyes widened as the realization struck him. He tried to kill you. I don't know, Sandy confessed truthfully. Raj looked on questioningly. I think he was just playing with me. Sandy gulped, then shook his head. With my life, I guess. He stole a glance at Raj, and I thought he was enjoying it. Raj's face had gained color. Just then, something caught Sandy's eye, and he continued distractedly. First time I had seen such eyes. And I guess he sprang up to his feet. What the hell? He looked into the distance in the water. What is it? Raj also stood up and followed Sandy's gaze. Suddenly, a thin tube came up barely above the water in the distance, and then it vanished as abruptly as it had appeared. The boys waited to watch, and soon another tube came up, but this time it was a distance farther from the lake and into the river. It seemed that there was more than one tube, and the tubes were moving. There go our men. Sandy gritted his teeth and threw the remaining twig to the ground. Then, urgently peeling off his shirt and shoes, he instructed, Go sound the alarm while I stall these punks. As Raj sprinted toward the lake, Sandy dived into the river. With powerful strokes, Sandy approached the tubes, but suddenly he rammed into a person underwater with full force. The unexpected collision rendered both the men gasping for air, and they bobbed up beside each other. The boss! Sandy panicked as soon as he saw him, and before the gang leader spotted him, Sandy went underwater again. Suddenly, something very huge and tough rammed into Sandy, and he surfaced out of surprise. To his horror, he realized that he was now bobbing in between Romy and the boss. The first thing he did was to land a punch in the boss's face, who went reeling backward into the water. Turning his body in the water, Sandy was relieved to see that Romy hadn't got a chance to gather his wits yet. Sandy didn't hesitate to land another punch, and Romy also splashed in the water beyond. But as Sandy looked around for the boss again, a punch landed on his nose bridge and he went under, bleeding profusely. The world seemed to be spinning around him, and he had a feeling that he was floating in space, only he couldn't breathe anymore. He was sinking, and he saw a bright white light shining in the distance. He tried desperately to focus on the light and realized that it was actually the sunlight bouncing off the silver surface of a huge structure. The silver palanquin, he recognized. Flailing his hands and legs, he made a desperate attempt to surface again. He broke surface with his mouth open, taking in a huge breath, when someone pounced on him and he went straight back in, gulping the murky waters of the river. He felt a hand grabbing his hair underwater and holding him there. Air! I need air! He kicked desperately in all directions in an attempt to strike at his attacker and caught someone. Instantly, the hand holding him below water lost its grip and Sandy surfaced yet again, but didn't stop kicking. He caught another 2 or 3 people before someone shouted, Stop! Help is here! Someone grabbed him by his collar from behind and he was brought to the bank of the river. Once on dry land, Sandy went on all fours, coughing and breathing heavily, and then wiped the blood off his face. When he was able to sit again, he saw 3 men being brought out of the water in handcuffs. The gang leader, Romy, and another guy he had never seen before. The gang leader spat out with vengeance. I will kill you before you even get a chance to see what life is. Sandy replied coolly, Save it, alright? If life has the power to turn a man into something like you, I don't even want to see it. We will see when you face your death again. I'm not afraid of death, but I think you are afraid of your life ahead. This statement stung the boss real bad, and he charged at Sandy like an angry bull, but was restrained in time. Let go of me! The boss struggled with all his might as he was escorted from there. That is my hard work. You can't take it away from me like this. After they were gone, Raj offered Sandy a hand to get up. So, big guy, you are not afraid of death, huh? He asked, smiling. Sandy slipped on his shirt as he replied, I recently discovered that the fear of loss is greater than the fear of death for me. And Raj lost his smile. As soon as Sandy realized this, he grimaced. I can't believe I just said that, he cursed himself, then continued. I mean, you were a good riddance, really. I could have had the whole room to myself. Come on, you little devil. Raj pulled him closer to hug him. I never did thank you for saving my life back there, did I? And Sandy complained heavenwards. So this is what I get, huh? In the end, one is supposed to kiss a girl, not hug a brother. Don't you get it? How many more movies do we need to make before you get the point? And the boys laughed out naughtily. Over the next few days, Tushar gave all the information possible about the gang, and most of the loot was retrieved. It turned out that Tushar was exceptionally good at history and geography. He was the one who had suggested the places to hide the loot and the escape routes as well. Tushar also told them that Teja happened to catch him ogling Priya one day and had asked whether he liked her, and Tushar had nodded. Later, when Priya told the group that Aakash had proposed to her, he happened to mention that in front of Teja, and Teja came up with a plan of beating Aakash. Tushar was completely against violence, but Teja forced him to at least act the part of the unconscious man on the road. Tushar was going through a rough time at home. He had lost his appetite and some weight, and hence the ring had become loose. So when he hurled the dirt in Aakash's eyes, his ring had slipped off his finger. Tushar also disclosed that Romy borrowed chili powder from the canteen supplies regularly, and he was the person who had spread the news about Aakash being beaten up for proposing to Priya in the college. It also turned out that the first time the brothers were attacked, the gang didn't know they were the sons of an ACP. When Priya was telling Sandy about Tushar and his ring over the phone, Tushar had heard her talking and had panicked. So he informed the gang about it. But soon, to his horror, plans were made to kidnap Priya before she met Sandy the next day. When Sandy was held captive in the haunted mansion, Tushar had come in the night with food and water for him, but found him gone from there. The only mistake Tushar made was not telling the gang that Sandy had escaped. He had feared that the gang would go after Sandy again. So when Romy saw Sandy in the college on Monday, the gang stopped trusting Tushar anymore. Romy also heard them discussing the case in the canteen and had become wary of their plans. When the boys parted ways at the college on Monday, Romy was all alone and decided to follow Sandy while the gang joined him en route. Teja and Vipul were clearing the debris in the underground tunnels at the time, and the boss instructed them over the cell phone to prepare for the ambush. When Sandy managed to free himself a second time and Raj didn't show up as instructed, the boss was infuriated. The college office was broken into that night by Romy, and the boy's address was taken from there. A break-in happened at our college and we never came to know about it? Raj asked disbelievingly. His father advised, it always pays if one has informers. People like the peons, receptionists, panwala, chaiwala, etc. They are very good resources of information. Develop these resources. They will help you a lot in the long run. During that same night, the gang visited the boys' house and discovered that they were the sons of ACP Ratan Nayak, the same person who was in charge of the special task force working on the temple theft case. The boss then decided to use the boys to stop the ACP. So even after Raj said that the boys were stopping their work on the gang's case, he was abducted. He was to act as the gang's freedom ticket, so it was important that he lived till the mission was complete. After the police came looking for Tushar, he went to stay in the cave and managed the food and water from the Sinhgarh fort. Sinhgarh is famous for its sorghum roti, gram flour vegetable and buttermilk. Tushar's father was still in the hospital and needed surgery. So when the Dagadu Sheth Ganapati Mandir Trust offered prize money to the Naik brothers, they requested that it be used to help Tushar with the operation. The Mandir Trust assured that they usually helped the needy for such medical emergencies, and Tushar's problem was resolved. Mr. Naik presented Sandy with a brand new cell phone and admitted, "When Rajesh was kidnapped and you had called me from a payphone and disconnected the call saying you will call back, I was worried sick. I had thought that you had taken off after the criminals all by yourself. Then I realized that if you had a mobile on you, I could have called you right then, instead of waiting for you to call back." A grand party was thrown by the Naiks on Saturday night, and almost 150 people were invited. It was mostly a thank you party for all those who had helped find Raj and a few other friends. Aakash was also there to personally thank the boys for all they had done for him. However, he still thought that they shouldn't have gone after his attackers, and the boys still thought that if they hadn't, the temple thefts would have still continued and the gang would have become more brazen and caused more harm to God knows how many more people. When Sunday came again, the Seagar trip was taken up, and this time 15 extra people joined the trekking party. Tushar was leading the group, and he showed them various places which others hadn't discovered yet. The trekking party, which also included girls this time, insisted on seeing the cave where Raj had been held captive. They've quipped, "I should charge for tickets to see this cave. With articles about you being published in the newspapers every day, I could be a rich man by just showing this cave to your fans." Everybody laughed, and Sandy snapped back, "Why don't you put a ticket on yourself? You are the person who gave us this mystery to solve. Remember?" So friends, with this video, we have come to the end of the story. Do tell us in the comments section how you liked it. We will soon be coming up with a new story, but because many of you requested that we publish this story in Hindi and Marathi versions too, we shall start with that. Don't miss our horror short story Burned Alive and our research video on the Hyderabad rape case, which discusses the mentality behind rapes, why people do such gruesome crimes, how to keep yourself safe, how to change as a society to reduce such crimes, and what to do if you have become a victim. We are also starting with a motivational short story series to dose you up with regular motivation. And we are also adding reaction videos where we analyze movies, TV shows, books, and other YouTube videos around the topic of crime and other things. So, until next time, keep safe. Namaskar.